Or not?
Check. The Sergeant at Arms announces the presence in the chamber of General Joseph L Lengyel, the Chief of the National Guard Bureau. He is escorted by Major General Glenn H. Curtis, the Adjutant General of Louisiana and the President of the Adjutants General Association of the United States, and Major General John F. Nichols, Texas Adjutant General.
Will the Sergeant at Arms escort our distinguished guest and his party to the podium? I got worried there for a minute when they played the Army song, sir. I was really glad you didn't walk so fast they didn't get to the Air Force song. That's right. Well, our first speaker this morning has been a senior officer at our National Guard Bureau for quite some time, but in that time, he was never able to come to the conference. At least not the last, 4 years, sir? So it was really fun to see him and his wife earlier in the conference. He's like, yeah, I'm here. He was what I used to always refer to as the stay-behind general. We always had to have the stay-behind general that had to keep the things running back in the state for me and obviously at the nation, at the Bureau. So we're really thrilled, sir, that you finally get to come join us, but more so that you've stepped up to lead our organization. We're so proud to have you here. And this new position enables us to be with us, I think, every year. So we're going to count on that. So ladies and gentlemen, our representative of the Joint Chiefs of Staff, the new Chief of the National Guard Bureau, General Joe Lengyel.
Thank you, Debbie. Thank you. Thank you, everybody. Please. Thanks. Have a seat. I want to give these pens to these two guys up here just in case anybody wants to take notes. Thanks, fellas.
Thank you, sir.
Yes, sir. So, well, good morning, everybody. I would say, Debbie, thank you. Thanks for the introduction. Thanks to the board. To all the distinguished guests here, to these former chiefs in the front row that have built this organization, former directors. I really want to say that I was struck by many things yesterday, but one of which was I want to be more careful sharing our notes with the CAGs from the other General Milley's CAG and Secretary of the Air Force's CAG, because I don't want these to become repetitive. But I think it's a good thing that I heard so much of what we say about ourselves now is being said by the active component, and it's being said by the Secretaries of the Air Force and the Secretaries of the Army. And it just made me so proud to see where we are today, where these gentlemen in there in the front row, the former chiefs and directors, have led us to what we have become today. So with that, I'll say I'm happy to be here. I have kind of been for the last 4 years. I used to joke, I'm the stay-at-home guy. I was chained to my desk at the Pentagon, and General Grass was running around talking about warfight homeland partnerships and soldiers and airmen, and that's fine. That was my role, and I learned a lot by doing that. So let's think about this for a second today, though, if you don't mind, about today. You know, I think 15 years ago today, right now, one of the World Trade Center towers was on fire. It had been hit, and that was the beginning of a change for us that I don't know that we saw coming. I think we're a different organization than we are now, than we were then. I was dutifully reading my NGAUS magazine, and I noticed on the back of it, it said, on 9/11, America changed, and so did the Guard. And I remember sitting there that day. It was a Tuesday morning for me. I was the ops group commander in the 149th Fighter Wing, and I was a Delta pilot. And then the day before, I had just gotten back from an airline trip, and it was a Tuesday morning, a Sunday morning, and I was thinking, great, you know, I'm actually going to have a day off. You know, I wasn't even going to go to the Guard that day. I was back in San Antonio, and things were spinning up, and I was reading the newspaper. And the phone rang for me, and it was my sister-in-law was calling to talk to my wife, Sally. And Mary said, hey, turn the TV on. And then, boom, of course, there it was. You know, and it changed something for all of us then. And so right away, you know, we're watching this whole thing, and then the second plane hit, 9:03. And, you know, then right away, we started getting dressed, went in, we started generating airplanes in the Texas National Guard. And as the rest of us, and those lives. I mean, there are events in someone's life where it changes, and everybody remembers it. It was a defining event for a lot of people in our life, and you know, it goes with people landing on the moon. It goes with Pearl Harbor, and those kind of events that are once in a generation that everybody remembers. We all have our own individual remember days where you remember where you were when this thing happened. I was flying to Germany in 2004 when the Red Sox won the World Series. That was an important event for me. But it didn't change my life, you know, like this did. So I'm gonna ask all of you to stand up. And just with me for a second, think about that day. The 2,996 people who died in those buildings, and then the thousands more who have since gone away, who fought in the wars in the ensuing decade. That decade was an amazing decade, and I would think that much of it was caused and changed by that day and that event. So let's have a moment of silence right now. Thank you all. Have your seats.
For nearly 4 centuries, this nation has trusted its National Guard. While we evolve to meet the challenges of an ever-changing world, our commitment to serve remains the same.
they go. They're pulling them up. He's giving them the signal to hoist them up.
And then they get to work one-on-one with a lot of the soldiers from our partner nations.
The National Guard is a critical component of our total force, bringing to bear the experience and skills of our citizen warriors wherever and whenever needed to confront the challenges of a complex world.
In my view, the National Guard and the United States Army Reserve are fundamental. It's not just a bumper sticker. The United States of America cannot conduct sustained land combat operations without the Guard and the Reserve. It's that simple.
The relationship between the Air Force and the National Guard is one built on decades of trust and proven performance. We cannot accomplish our warfighting mission without the Air National Guard, and we all train to the same standard, and it shows every day. We are truly one Air Force.
I think you see our military personnel are getting in today because they understand the importance of being deployed. They understand the importance of the United States and our National Guard protecting freedom, not only here but around the world.
It's essential. It's not like, hey, it's really cool having the Guard and Reserve, or wouldn't it be nice? It's essential.
Because we really see this as a team effort. When disasters strike, one of the first things, one of the first options the governor has when locals need more resources is to call out the Guard.
Interagency cooperation, not only at the local law enforcement level and emergency responses, but statewide with the National Guard.
Our highest gratitude goes out against the National Guard for their expertise, professionalism, and just the way they conduct themselves. We couldn't have done it without them.
These people are Louisianans. It's like this family. And every time you help a family, it's always a good thing.
We're doing a humanitarian assistance mission with our allies here in Croatia.
We're all citizen soldiers, Louisiana National Guard. This is what we're here for.
We are working hard each and every day to build upon our formidable legacy. Yesterday, today, and for tomorrow, the National Guard is always ready, always there.
Okay, so thanks everybody. I thought that kind of sums up who and what we are. I'll tell you, next year I'm going to lobby Gus. Gus, you've heard most of the speech. You're probably cleared to leave if you want. I mean, I've given this speech before, so you're not going to learn anything new here. But I'm going to look for a different time slot, so I don't have to. I thought I was really in a bad shape after I had to follow General Milley yesterday. It's a tough act to follow, and then Chief Mabarak this morning is another chief that was hard to follow. What a fantastic story it is about us. So the speech that I'm going to give you today, ladies and gentlemen, is essentially about this moniker that you see up here in front of you. Every decision that we make at the National Guard Bureau, every decision we talk about resources, everything we talk about policy, it's all focused on this moniker, this mission moniker. And I'll tell you that the National Guard Bureau is a great team. But we exist just for one reason, only for one reason. And that reason is to support the M-Day soldier and airman who enables us to do these things on this medallion. So I'm going to talk to you first about telling you that the Guard does three things. And this is the story I told you the day I became the chief. I wrote a note to everybody and I put it on my website. And I said that I am so happy and proud to be able to tell your story. And that story is an easy one to tell. And for all of you, when people talk about the Guard, I'm hoping that you'll consider telling it the same way when people say, tell me about the Guard, because we have become very successful at building our brand. And that's important in Washington, D.C. and around the world. And when you're talking about people and the trust and confidence of the American people in tough fiscal times, people want to know, why are you of value? And so what I tell people is the National Guard does three things. We fight wars, we protect the homeland, and we build partnerships. And we do all of those things because of the person in the middle of this medallion, that soldier and that airman, that is our most important weapon system. So let me talk about the war fight for just a minute. So the war fight. We get about $26 billion a year from the Department of Defense. And we get that money not because of the Homeland or not because of partnerships, although everything on that medallion is linked and connected. We get that money because we are part of General Milley's Army and General Goldfein's Air Force. And in the past 15 years, we have become a new force. You know, I think what is different about us now, and I've been in the Guard now 25 years myself, and almost all of that 25 years has been the transformation of the Air National Guard from what was a reliable, competent surge capability for our Air Force in time of a war. It has become now an operational, equal fighting force with our United States Air Force. And we have the same equipment. We have the same training. We have the same expectations. We are expected to be as good as our active component brothers when we deploy and go to combat. And the fact is, as we are. In fact, if you think about it, we're starting to hear less and less people saying, well, I couldn't tell the difference between the Guardsmen or the reservists or the active component. And that's because it no longer is an oddity that you can't tell the difference. It is an expectation that we are the same. And I would argue that the 25 years that our Air Force has been transforming began for our Army on 9/11. I think that on 9/11, well, clearly when we saw the beautiful presentation as this ceremony opened up yesterday, as we saw all of the battles and battle flags and wars that the National Guard has fought in, and we have been there. And we are now in the third era of the National Guard. The first one was the militia force, all the way up until 1903 in the Dick Act. Then we became federally trained and funded and regulated, and we became the strategic force, the strategic surge force that was to come and go and fight our nation's wars in time of crisis, to now we are an operational force. And to me, that operational force means an expectation that there is a steady and frequent deployment of our force structure. So we're coming out of a period for the last 15 years when, during Iraq and Afghanistan, we had 60,000 Guardsmen mobilized, steady state for almost 10 years, fighting wars in Iraq and Afghanistan. 60,000 of us were gone. And I don't know that sustainable over time forever, if our business model can endure that level of continuous sustained deployment. But right now, today, we have just over 10,000 Guardsmen deployed. So what I offer to General Milley and to the United States is our value proposition is that there is more fighting capacity, more sustained normal operational capacity resident in our formations across the country. The Air Force is continuously and ongoing deploying our forces around the world. Some are stressed. Tankers are a stressed force structure. I think the Army has additional capacity to deploy more frequently, and I think General Milley has a plan to use as he spends more resources to make our forces ready, as he so eloquently talked about yesterday. I think it is his plan, and we have the capacity to fill some of those needs. And so part of what I ask of you, and I ask as I go around the country and talk to people, is you have to tell us when that begins to break our business model. As our business model is dependent on supporting the soldiers and the airmen and the employers and the communities, because we have other things that we do here at home. So what that is, we don't want to look like the Army or the Air Force. We are a predominantly part-time force by design, and we have a steady state capacity to contribute warfighting structure that somehow fits a balance in our structure, and we have to find out what that is. Over the past 15 years, almost 800,000 individual mobilizations has occurred. General Milley talked about the Army yesterday. It was over 500,000. Add the Air Force on top of that. It is a significant contribution to the warfight, and it is now a new expectation of us going forward. Okay, so what do we do when we're in dwell? When we're in dwell 24/7, 365, we use the equipment and our people and our resources in our homeland to take care of our duties and responsibilities here. And this is where I'm careful as I talk around the world and around the system, is when bad things happen in America, everybody pitches in. Everybody helps. The active component, the reserve component, all the first responders, everybody comes together. But what's different about us, what's different about the National Guard is it is in our job jar. We are America's domestic military crisis response force. It is us that plan, that work with the first responders. It is us that are there in every community across the nation. It is us that if we do not respond, if we don't do this, this is our area of responsibility in the homeland. And if we don't respond, then people die. And they're every bit as dead as somebody who might happen to die in a combat casualty in Iraq and Afghanistan. This is our AOR. And America counts on us. We are resiliency for America. And I don't think that it's lost on anybody how important that resiliency is. In today's world, the need for our ability to respond back from bad things that happen, whether it's natural disasters or whether it's the chemical, biological, radiological, nuclear section of which we have 60% of the response capability in the National Guard, or whether it's some terrorist activity, whether it's Boston or whether it's some yet to be determined improvised explosive device, or whether it's wildfires or whatever the response is we bring strength and resilience to America such that we bounce back from events like 9/11. And I believe that we are a part like no other force, and we have become relied on. One of General Grass's talking points, which kind of struck me and I say frequently, is we are the same size today as we were in 1953, right after the Korean War, and there were 150 million Americans then. And now there are 330 million Americans, and we are the same size, and the expectations of our ability to help and assist local responders have only increased, and we do it every single day. Okay, so that's the homeland. Got some good pictures on there. Okay, never mind. And all right, so the pictures. Upper left, taking care of air defense in the National Capital Region. F-16s doing air defense. That's a cyber protection team in the bottom left-hand corner. And obviously you've got Louisiana responding to devastating floods that I was just down with Glenn and his 3,500. Man, just one quick little story. As I was flying down to Louisiana to visit those troops, I was getting messages from Secretary of Work and the Deputy Secretary of Defense, and we were talking about an issue that was bubbling around about some rumor that the National Guard was restricted to mobilizing 50% of its force structure without the permission of the governors. And so they were asking about, well, is it really wise to put force structure and National Guard capability in F-35s and units when you can only get to 50% of it? And so, as you normally have to do, and one of the reasons I'm there is I was able to respond back and say, sir, there is no 50% rule. You are not restricted on mobilizing the National Guard. You have 100% of the National Guard available for mobilization. There are no differences in mobilizing National Guard force structure or reserve force structure. But you know what? As I'm flying home from Louisiana, let me tell you that it might be a good idea to look around, and if possible, don't take it all out of any one state, because I'm just watching 3,500 of them help Louisiana dig out from some of the worst floods they've had in 500 years. And he was good point, got it, thanks. He was very, very appreciative of what the Louisiana National Guard was doing. Okay, the third point, partnerships. So we've got warfight homeland partnerships. We can't do really any of the first two things, the warfight piece or the homeland piece, without having the required partnerships. But when I talk about this, we talk about it on several levels. First was international partnerships. Everybody's aware of the state partnership program, 73 spectacular programs around the world. And we're going to grow that with Malaysia, Argentina, and Niger coming up here in the next few months. There are packages all right now at OSD for approval of new partners for those states. And that program has become such a strategic tool for engagement to assure and deter allies and potential foes around the world in that order, that it really is now recognized for the strategic tool that it is. But I like to tell the story that about 10 years ago, I was at a meeting in USAFE, and General Blum was over there for a state partnership program, and people were telling him, why are you still spending money on these European partnerships? 13 of them are now members of NATO. And at the time, there were 7 of them, and more of them were doing it. And they were deploying with us around the world. And General Blum said, it was visionary in my mind, he said, you haven't even begun yet to see the benefit that you will receive from these partnerships. These partnerships pay benefits over decades, not over just a couple of years. And people were kind of surprised that we were still spending money and having bilateral affairs officers living in those various countries. But clearly today, you can see the value of having partnerships in Bulgaria and Romania and Poland and the Baltics and all around the world as things have happened and gone on from that time. So that's the international level. At the federal level, clearly we have partnerships with NORTHCOM, with Department of Homeland Security, with FEMA, with all of the federal agencies that help us do our jobs and respond across the spectrum of potential disasters and contingencies where we might have to participate. At the local level, we've got partnerships in our communities that only the National Guard could have, partnerships with Starbase and with Youth Challenge, who have now graduated 150,000 students in Youth Challenge. One of the greatest success stories, I think, and maybe a long-term legacy for the Guard, like state partnership in its strategic impact on the society long-term. I think it's incredibly important. So frequently, when I give speeches to company-grade officers, I tell them everything on that medallion, Warfight Homeland Partnerships, is in your job. They're all connected. When you know how to do your warfight mission and when you are able to use all of your skills and abilities and people to leverage those capabilities in the homeland, and you have partnerships with everybody you need to do homeland and warfight, then you're well on the way to doing good things for your unit and for the National Guard. And finally, the most important thing is in the middle. That person, that airman or that soldier, it is our most important weapon system. And it is every bit as hard to develop and every bit as precious to us as developing a new bomber or a new aircraft carrier or a new weapon system. And it takes every bit as long. It takes decades to grow and develop the people that lead our force. We can't do warfight, homeland, and partnerships without that person in the middle. And so where is the breaking point? Where do we get to a point where we're using them too much? And I think part of what we have to consider as we do this is our system must grow and develop these people on the principles of ethics. They go from the top down to the bottom. You know, we don't accept people that don't have ethical behavior in our ranks. We have a culture of respect for everybody who takes the oath and lives up to the oath, that they can participate in our National Guard and be part of it. And we have to make sure that everybody has a chance, regardless of your race, your ethnicity, your gender, to go from the lowest all the way to the top of this. There's someone sitting probably in here, one of these company grade officers, who will be on this stage as the chief in 20 years, that needs to think about their development. And I think that's our most important weapon system, and we spend a lot of time thinking about it. And we're different in the National Guard than we were pre-9/11. I mean, there's more expectations, people around the world, members of the Joint Chief. And I can tell you that that's having an impact, I think, on our influence and ability to get the resources and the need and to carry our brand forward. Okay, so what are some of the challenges ahead? And there are challenges. I think if you look, General Milley covered some of these yesterday, and so did Secretary James. I mean, the wartime challenges, everybody made it clear that the new normal is this continued high operational tempo that the National Guard is part of today. And it's not going to go away. And right now, we have troops in Afghanistan and Iraq and Djibouti and Germany and multiple places around the world. And plans to send people more to Jordan and to other places around Africa. All are out there right now, and it's not going away. We have the 5 big threats that everybody talks about: China, Russia, Iran, North Korea. And all of those threats have implications not only in the warfight domain, but all of those warfight domains will touch the homeland. And those homeland implications, again, are unique to the National Guard. From my seat, I think about the implications of, the last time there was a full and total mobilization of the National Guard was World War II. Everybody was mobilized until the end of the war plus 6 months. And I think, one of the things that I might bring to the president or to the secretary is, in any of those big warfight situations, we're no longer protected by these 2 big oceans on the side of us as we were before. And as the United States becomes a target and becomes actually a possibility of actual attack here in the homeland, there may be reasons not to mobilize all of the National Guard. We may need the authorities that we bring to our states and to our local authorities for maintaining security in the homeland. It may be best if some of the National Guard isn't mobilized. So I think that clearly General Milley talked about the nature of war and the character of war. These threats don't stay in just one AOR anymore. They swap between EUCOM, CENTCOM. They're all mixing and matching, which is a different nature, different character of war. And we're going to have to deal with that going forward. So I think the National Guard is going to be part of it. And you heard it yesterday from the Secretary, and you heard it yesterday from General Milley. And I think that we're still going to have financial challenges going forward. And I think that they said yesterday, the Secretary was talking about continuing resolutions, all those things are going to happen. And from where I sit and the meetings I go to, there's no more money out there, really. I mean, our baseline of funding is going to be about the same pot that it is now. It's not going to change enough. And we can't spend money, even if we had it, we can't spend enough to stop Russia or China from changing the dynamic of closing in on us as a near-peer competitor. So threats are going to be a problem, and there's not going to be any magic money out there, and it's going to be up to us, the National Guard, to maintain the value proposition that we bring such that we can grow the Army and grow the Air Force in times of crisis and sustain utilization of us to fight the wars going forward. So it's kind of where I see it. Those are some of the challenges that we have facing. So let me wrap this up. I'll tell you about my first month as the chief, real quick. Being a chief's way more than twice as good as being the vice. I got to tell you. So in my first month, really in my first couple weeks, I go to Michigan, and I see in Michigan, can't remember the name of the exercise. Northern Strike, thank you. Northern Strike. How could I forget that? 5,000 soldiers training in Northern Strike at Camp Grayling in Michigan. And 5 different countries who were there participating in live drop exercises. Coalition, joint, combined, live fire exercises. Commandant of the Marine Corps was there with me, watching this great training go on. Marine Corps Reserves were there training with us. We went and got them. I'm standing there with General Neller, and he says, I don't know how you guys did it, but you guys went and picked us up. You went and got our stuff. You brought us all here, and you enabled us to come to this great training. I slapped him on the knee and said, no sweat. I had no idea we did that, but I came back and thanked Tim Cadavy and Scott Rice and said, hey, good job, man. Whatever you did, do it again next year. That was it. So I come back from that, and I'm sitting here in my chair, and Louisiana's bubbling up. And I called Glenn Curtis, and I said, Glenn, I don't want to be in your way. I really don't. I don't want to come down and have you have to worry about taking care of me. But I went down there and I said, if I could, I'd like to come thank these soldiers and airmen for doing what they do in your homeland. And so I did. He said, come down. And I went down and I had lunch with the governor, and I went out and I saw all the people out there who were actually in this incredibly synchronized response that Louisiana clearly gets too much rain and too much water. But they had everything so synced. They had shelters, they had pet shelters, and they had LSU veterinarians that were synced up with coming up to the pet shelters, and it was so well organized. And everywhere I went, people thanked me. I said, don't thank me. These are the people out here that are doing all this job for what we do in the homeland. And as I was flying out there, I was saying, wow, I feel bad. I'm going to go see these folks in Louisiana, but California's had 500 people fighting fires for months. They've been out there doing it. And it's what we do in the National Guard. So I'm excited. My wife Sally and I seriously look forward to being your chief of the National Guard Bureau for the next 4 years. I've had great examples here down in front. I want to say that I think we have a great team in the National Guard Bureau. Sally and I are excited. The President has nominated Lieutenant General Hokanson to be my vice chief, and I expect that by the end of this month, God willing, he'll be confirmed. We've got General Tim Catavy and General Scott Rice. We've got all of our people who are and need to be with and from the states as we run the National Guard Bureau. Because we only have one job, and that job is to enable the men and women. That M-Day soldier and airman is the only reason we're there, to have policies and money and resources so that soldier can train, and so that soldier can be developed, and so we can do warfight homeland partnerships. Thank you very much. Thank you. Okay, thank you. Okay, thank you.
You want to take questions?
What time?
Appreciate that.
Okay.
He's going to be around, so if you have questions, you can take them online. This will keep us on track a little bit. Sir, thank you so much for coming to join us for your first NGAUS conference as the chief. I'd like to present just a little momentum that won't violate any of your rules and ethics so the lawyers can settle down. It's the book, What So Proudly We Hail. It's the first biography in 75 years of Francis Scott Key. That's twice I've done that now.
That's okay.
But obviously, you know that these words were penned that became our national anthem right here in Baltimore over 200 years ago. So, but I also, as you start your new rack of coins as chief, I'd like to give you our limited edition coin that has our memorial building, your memorial building on it. And I know it's no strange place for you, but thank you so much for joining us today.
Thank you, Debbie. My honor. I'm honored to be here.
Thrilled.
Thank you very much. Thank you.
Will the Sergeant at Arms please escort our distinguished guest and his party from the podium. Sir, thank you so much.
My pleasure.
So glad to have
Thank
you here
you so
and
much.
have you in as our chief. Great to see you.
I'll see you tomorrow.
You bet. We'll now take a short break. The refreshments can be found in the exhibit hall. When we return, we'll get a preview of next year's conference, so don't miss it. Later this morning, we'll present our Harry S. Truman Award and hear from the new Chief of Staff of the Air Force, so we'll see you back here at 1000.
Do you have another coin?